La vie bohème.
Sisters.
We're close.
Brothers. Bisexuals, trisexuals, homo sapiens,
The theater has long been hailed as a safe space for queer people.
Just so you know, if you were gay, that'd be okay.
This presence is often indirectly credited to famous American lyricist and composer Cole Porter, who, though married to a woman, often engaged in same-sex encounters and relationships. His musicals were the first to include strong sexual innuendos, both hetero and homosexual. His musical Kiss Me Kate, which won the first ever Tony Award for Best Musical, features this line in Too Darn Hot. Many successful musicals include queer characters and relationships, including the romance between Collins, a man, and Angel, a drag queen that uses both masculine and feminine pronouns in Rent.
and I'll be your castle.
No, you'll be my queen, and I'll be your moat.
Joanne, a lesbian woman, and Maureen, a bisexual woman, in the same musical. Hedwig, a transgender rock star, and Yitzig, a Jewish drag queen, in Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And Marvin and Whizzer in Falsettos.
I'm glad he's mine, awake, asleep.
This strong relationship between the queer community and Broadway is seen not only in the shows themselves, but in pop culture.
Now I have hair from Bernadette Peters, Betty Buckley, and Idina Menzel. All I need is Patti LuPone and my Broadway diva wit will be complete!
And even the Tony Awards themselves.
Just for gays anymore.
While the queer presence on Broadway is strong, most queer performers and queer leading character roles are men. Before 2015, a Broadway musical had never featured a lesbian protagonist. On March 27, 2015, Fun Home became the first Broadway musical about a lesbian character, and the first to even feature a lesbian character in a leading role. Adapted from Alison Bechdel's critically acclaimed graphic novel, lyricist Lisa Crone and composer Janine Tesori created an emotional work of art that is relatable to all families despite its highly unique subject matter. The show won 5 Tonys at the 2015 awards, including the award for Best Musical. Despite this overwhelming success, the show ran on Broadway for a little over a year and a half. To put this in perspective, the 2014 Tony Award winner for Best Musical and 3 additional Tonys, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, ran for nearly 3 years. More recently, Dear Evan Hansen won 6 Tonys in 2017 and has been playing for over a year with no sign of closing anytime soon. Fun Home is not the first Broadway musical to fall short of its critical expectations. Manuel-Miranda, the genius behind Hamilton, had his first Broadway success with In the Heights, a musical about growing up in Washington Heights, New York. The neighborhood was a predominantly Hispanic immigrant community before gentrifying in the mid-2000s, so Miranda's musical was partially in Spanish. It focused mainly on what it's like to be an immigrant in the United States from different characters' perspectives. It won 4 Tonys in 2008, including the award for Best Musical, and ran for almost 3 years. Miranda has remarked in the past that the musical should have run for much longer, given its critical success, but speculated it did not because of the niche, non-mainstream style and subject matter. It is fair to assume the same is true for the case of Fun Home. People assumed that a so-called lesbian story was not one that they could relate to or be entertained by. It is also likely that many found the premise of watching what they deemed to be a musical coming-out story to be uncomfortable to sit through, and even inappropriate in some cases. In other words, Fun Home closed in part because of the age-old heteronormative bias that queer stories are not human stories. Queer stories are for queer people and queer people only. While the identity of the authors and characters in a queer narrative are important in terms of representation and making sure that marginalized voices are heard, inclusion of one group does not require exclusion of another. Pride and Prejudice and The Great Gatsby are not resigned to shelves in the bookstore marked heterosexual narratives. Queer men and women will still buy tickets to Dear Evan Hansen, even though it features a romantic relationship between a boy and a girl. And yet, countless heterosexual people will pass over Bechdel's novel on the bestsellers display because it is described as a coming-out story in a quote from Time magazine on the second page. Though songs like Changing My Major and Helen's Etude deal explicitly with homosexual characters' romantic relationships, several others explore topics without a romantic or sexual delegation. Days and Days shares Allison's mother's experience with female oppression as a woman in the post-World War II United States. Allison's father, Bruce, was a verbally abusive closeted gay man who cheated on her with underage boys. She stayed in the relationship because those were her expectations as a wife for the time. Telephone Wire orchestrates the difficulty in trying to build a relationship with a distant parent once you've grown up and understand them from a new perspective. As adult Allison desperately pleads with her younger self to reach out to her father, the audience can feel her pain and wisdom gained, now even further removed from the last conversation she had with her father. The most moving of these transcendent pieces is Ring of Keys, a beautiful tribute to identity, sometimes misunderstood by audiences. Young Allison is sitting in a diner with her father when a, quote, old-school butch delivery woman enters. This song was intentionally composed and written in a simple verse-chorus-bridge form, because that is the song format most listeners are familiar with. This made the piece easy to receive and established implicit acceptance and understanding with the more complex thoughts young Allison is expressing with childlike innocence. Because Allison is a lesbian, an initial interpretation of this number could be that it's a song about love or attraction. As someone who has often felt abnormal or lost in the expectation of what I should be, I did not have a problem understanding the meaning of this song the first time I heard it. I believe that anyone who has ever felt like an outsider and remembers a time when they met someone who embodied the characteristics that they were unable to describe in themselves would also find the intended meaning in this song.
You're wearing your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys, oh, your ring of keys. I know you.
It is not solely about being gay. It is about identity and seeing yourself in another. In fact, the woman who composed the piece, Janine Tesori, though married to a man, relates her own journey to that of Allison's.
I didn't realize that a career in music was available to women until 1981. I saw the magnificent Linda Twine conduct A Lady in Her Music, Lena Horne. And that was my Ring of Keys moment, which, by the way, is not a song of love, it's a song of identification, because for girls, you have to see it to be it.
Fun Home is a beautiful and remarkable work of art as it stands alone, but also in the way it was able to so accurately tell Alison Bechdel's story. The author has shared in interviews that even the parts of the musical that were not a part of the book are so true that she can't tell what Cronin Tesori added from her actual childhood. The experience depicted is honest and true even in its flourish and embellishment. Fun Home is a rare piece of art that is able to have value both in its mastery of the craft and its contributions to the fight for equality and acceptance. It amuses and challenges its audience, and will not fade away or become irrelevant regardless of whether the show continues to be performed. Lisa Kron humbly used her time to speak while accepting her Tony to share her thoughts on the impact she hopes Fun Home and shows like it will have on the Broadway community.
For many, many years, I have had a recurring dream, and I don't mean a metaphorical dream. I don't mean a Martin Luther King dream. I mean an actual while I'm sleeping dream, that I suddenly discovered that the apartment I live in has a whole bunch of rooms that I didn't know were there. And I'm like, how did I not know about all these rooms? And I've been thinking about that dream as I've been thinking about this amazing Broadway season, because we all live in this big house, and we've all been sitting in the same one or two main rooms and thinking that this was the whole house. And this season, some lights got turned on in some other rooms. And we're all like, oh my God, this house is so much bigger than I thought. We're like, I didn't know that we had a garden. I didn't know we had a freaking ballroom. This pantry is full of food. I had no idea. The thing is, all those other rooms have always been there, and there have always been really interesting people in them doing ravishing things. And wouldn't it be so great if after this season, we didn't all just go back into the living room? This has been the most successful season in Broadway history because all of us have been going into all of these amazing rooms in our house where we live together that we haven't been in before. You guys, our house is so big. Please, let's not just all go back into the living room.
Hey, did I mention that new project I've taken on? Oh, you've seen it out. That old house out on Route 150. Oh, it's been standing out there empty 40 or 50 years at least.
Telephone wire
Stop too fast, telephone wire. Make this not the past. This car ride, this is where it has to happen. There must be some other chances. There's a moment I'm forgetting where you tell me you see me. Say something, talk to me. Say something, anything. At the light, at the light. This can't be our last.
That was fun. Oh, it's earlier than I thought. Are you coming in?
Telephone wire.